Coming up, can the Bible actually be fun and exciting to read? Can I really get something meaningful out of the Old Testament? Is speaking in tongues for everyone? Pastor Peter tackles these questions and so much more.
God's love, elevating, energizing, empowering. Miracles happen when you know that you are loved. Peter Youngren has communicated God's love with millions from every religion and culture. Get ready for your ultimate life because you are loved.
This week we have covered a lot of ground on the topic of how to read the Bible. It's possible to read the Bible without getting anything out of it, but that's kind of boring. Wouldn't you rather enjoy it, understand it, and get something out of it? I think most of us would say yes. This week, Pastor Peter has helped us to read the Bible, taught us to figure out what's being said and how it can help us today, pointing to the simple fact that the Bible is simply to reveal Jesus, both in the Old Testament and New Testament. Today, we conclude the final teaching segment on this topic.
If you look at before the cross, everything was about division. Everything was divided. Everyone say division. You have the priest and then the high priest. And the high priest could do stuff the priest couldn't do. Then you had the priest and the other men in the society. And they could do certain things. And then you had the women. And then you had the non-Jewish people. So you had all these groups of people. Like if you were the high priest, you had the best shot at it, right? You could go into the most holy place. And if you were the priest, you're pretty good. You're there with the different altars. And then if you were a man, come on now, ladies, don't get upset. If you were a man, you could really get a little closer. But the women, it's even the same way in Israel today. Have you been to the Western Wall? It's the same time every time. The women are standing over there. And I guess sometimes we men enjoy that because that was the only place on the earth, where we can go. But I always feel bad for the women. Don't you? Come on, ladies. I'll try to sneak you in, but it'll be hard. And you can go. And so the women, and then the people who are, it's like an apartheid. It was a division. But Jesus breaks down that division. That's the gospel. And so we don't have segments of people. We have everybody. We have whosoever. That's the message of the Bible. They went through all these religious systems, but now everything is fulfilled in Jesus. And Jesus is the apex. Jesus is the climax of the Bible. So look at this. Now, Ephesians 2, now in Christ Jesus, you who were once far off have been brought near by the blood of Christ. For he himself is our peace, who made both one and has broken down the middle wall of separation, having abolished in his flesh the enmity. What's the enmity? What's the enmity? Hang tight, it's going to come. What is it? That is the law of commandments. That's our enemy. Because by the law, you're never good enough. The law was our enemy. It's referred to that many times. He abolished in his flesh the enmity. That is the law of commandments. Because every time you try to keep all the commandments, you failed in one. Even if you didn't fail in action, you failed in thought. So it stands against you. It's a handwriting against you. And why did he do this? To create in himself one new man from the two, and so making peace, that he might reconcile them both to God in one body through the cross, thereby putting to death the enmity. So whoever you are, male or female, Jew or Gentile, there is no wall of division. We have become one new man in Jesus Christ. So if you want to understand the Bible, let me tell you my personal testimony. Everybody knows that 15 years ago, the Lord spoke to me. I shouldn't say everybody knows that, but people have heard me speak. Hear me refer to that from time to time. That at a very low point in my life, I wanted to quit. I wanted to give up. And Jesus said to me, you think you know me? And I thought I know Jesus very well because, I had seen tremendous things. I often think of our campaign in Bulgaria, which was before that, where the police wrote that we had 250,000 people a night, never before seen, and like that, in Europe. And so I thought, I know Jesus pretty good. I was maybe a little bit smug about it. Maybe I did know Jesus. People always said, you preach so much about Jesus. But I said, you don't know me as much as you think. But if you want to, if you're humble, I can teach you more. I mean, how do you respond to that? I said, well, I think I go for more. And first he began to show me his love. I cried for days over how much God loved me. I just couldn't, wow, how much God loved me. I saw God's love. And then I began to study Brother Paul. Everybody say, Brother Paul, he's our man. And he's always saying, I have a message for you. I thought, Gentiles, if that's me. I'm from Sweden. I'm included. He's a message for me. I want to pay attention to him. So I was just reading Paul. Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, Romans, all of them, all the books of Paul. So I was just reading them and reading, because I realized what I had done was, as a preacher for many years before that, preachers look in the concordance and they'd say, I'm preaching on joy this Sunday, so they pick scriptures about joy from Psalms. They find a verse in Colossians, and they find one in Isaiah, and they kind of just jam all those verses on joy together, and they have 3 points, and then they go home. But you miss the message. So if you just pick a verse here and there out of Paul's writing, you don't get what's he actually talking about. You're just finding a verse to support your thesis. So I said, I got to read it. Just read it. And he writes like this. He says, if you read what I have written, he says in Ephesians 3, you will discover the wisdom and the understanding I have in the mystery of Christ. This is how Paul talks. You think he's high on himself? No, he's saying, I received this from Jesus. So I'm saying, he's not just giving me some topics for a sermon. He's revealing something. And I began to study this. And I saw that Paul is so amazing. Have you ever thought about the trouble that Peter had, Simon Peter, who is like a big apostle? Everybody go, big apostle. I mean, Simon Peter is big. Come on now. Big, big, big. Wouldn't you like to have him come in for a convention? Simon Peter, wow, he would draw a crowd, wouldn't he? But Simon Peter had a lot of trouble. If anybody put his foot in his mouth, it was Simon Peter. So again, there's hope for all of us. Simon Peter, the big guy, he had trouble. So there's hope for us. I see you're receiving that just like I did. There's hope for all of us. So for example, at the Mount of Transfiguration, when you had Elijah and Moses and Jesus, and they're all there, typically, who talks? You would have thought when Jesus and Moses and Elijah were there, that Simon Peter might have thought, this is a good time for me to shut up and not say anything. But no. He had to mouth off. He just didn't have the sense enough to be quiet. So it says with Jesus shining in a radiant light and Elijah and Moses, who spoke? Peter spoke. Wow, how appropriate. And he says, well, I think we should have 3 cabins here, one for Moses, one for Elijah, and one for Jesus. He said, let's put them all together here. And how unselfish, he didn't want to build a cabin for himself. Well, not so fast, because the Heavenly Father gives Simon Peter a rebuke. He says to him, very loving rebuke. He says, this is my beloved Son, hear him. And when the Father says that, whoosh, Moses disappears, Elijah disappears, bye-bye. And it's only Jesus left. Only Jesus left. They're gone. So these are the days of Jesus. The others are gone. We'll see them in heaven one day, but they're gone. And so Simon Peter had this trouble. On the day of Pentecost, he was mightily anointed. He said, he said it by the Spirit, what's happening right now, it's going to come on all flesh. Everybody say, all flesh. I mean, he's talking big. He's a big talking preacher under the anointing of God. Hardly knows what he's saying. He says, all flesh is going to get this. But 2 years later, when the Spirit sent some people so that Simon Peter had to mosey on down from his place in Jaffa, and go to an Italian's house. He can't even go. Surely the Italians are included in all flesh. But he can't go because he's so tied up in his tradition. And what if they have shrimp sandwiches over there? What if they have bacon, lettuce, and tomatoes and non-kosher food over in? What are people going to say? He's really concerned about what people are going to say. That's the big thing. What are the apostles? How can I keep this a secret? I'm going to Cornelius' house because an angel has told me to go, but I really don't want anybody to know, because what if the other apostles find out and they begin to inquire, what food did they serve you when you got? Was there salami? Pizza? Did you have Italian sausage and pork on it, or what was it? He says, what am I going to do? Like I'm the big apostle. So do you see how tied up he was in religion? He's having this battle, which I think is beautiful because it's hope for all of us. He's having this battle. And Jesus has to straighten him out over and over again and say, don't call anybody common or unclean. Quit calling people common or unclean. Stop this having walls between people, us and them. Stop it, he says. Don't do that. I've cleansed them. I died for them. I rose again for them. So he has to straighten Simon Peter out. And this happens again. You would have thought he would have learned his lesson. Oh, this is hopeful for all of us because sometimes we have the same lesson taught over and over again. So over in Antioch, we know that Peter gets into trouble again. So that Paul has to publicly rebuke him. Wow, what a meeting that would have been. I wish we had that one on television where Paul went in and he said, Peter and Barnabas. Barnabas was his spiritual mentor. He says, I have a word for the two of you. Stand up. Can you imagine if we got that on video? And then he says, you two have been hypocrites. What, Paul? Can't you calm down a little bit? He says, you have been mixing the law with grace. And he says, to paraphrase, he says, before these people came from Jerusalem that followed the law, you were eating all the Gentiles' food. You were eating non-kosher food. But now that they arrived, you changed your diet overnight. So you're faking it. Yesterday you had bacon, lettuce, and tomato sandwiches over there in the stand in the cafeteria. And now you can't do that. You have to have all these pots and pans that are cleansed the Jewish way. He says, you are hypocrites. And he rebuked them. And the marvelous thing about Simon Peter, he took it. Come on now. He was saying, I'm the mighty Simon Peter. Sit down, Paul of Tarsus, you little squirt. You're not going to talk to me. He took it. Come on, everybody say, thank God for the example of Simon Peter. He took it. He took it on the chin. He said, give me another one. It's true. But he had this trouble. So one day, I think the Lord really showed me why Paul didn't have that trouble, why he became our man. Because it makes no sense that Paul is our man, because Simon Peter was an unlearned fisherman. So he should have been the apostle to the Gentiles, to us barbarians. And Paul, who knew the law, should have been the apostle to the Jews, but God reversed it. He sent the unlearned to the learned, and the learned to the unlearned. Isn't that something? And what happened? Let me describe it because it gives me goosebumps. And that's why Paul is our key to understand the Bible. He's on the road to Damascus. He's breathing murder. He wants to kill people. And suddenly he sees a bright light, as bright as the noonday. And he hears a voice. And see, Simon Peter wouldn't have known maybe what that was. But Paul knew right away what that was. Because he studied the Old Testament. He had memorized. He was a part of the Sanhedrin Jewish Council. When he saw that great light, he said, that is Shekinah. That's the glory of God. That's God's glory. So he was stunned. And then he looks and he says, there's a man in Shekinah. That's not possible. See, he knew enough of theology that no man can stand in the presence of God and live. So he says, why is there a man standing in Shekinah? This makes no sense whatsoever. So he says, who are you, Lord? Is this the logical question? Like this blows my mind. I don't get it. This is not possible. Everything I've ever studied tells me this cannot happen. No man can stand in God's Shekinah glory and live, and there's a man standing there. So what's going on? He says, I don't get it. Who are you, Lord? And the answer comes, I am Jesus, who you persecute. And it was like, whoosh. 10,000 pieces of a puzzle that never fit, just drops into place. He knew he could just rhyme them off. Every sacrifice, the heifers and the goats and the lambs and the sacrifices and the turtle doves, and he knew it all. He knew all the prophecies. He had them all. He knew it all. And he suddenly saw, if that is Jesus, the one who my buddies, because the ones who crucified Jesus were Paul's buddies, he wasn't there, the one we hated, the one who we thought was from the devil, if he's standing in the Shekinah glory, then I have been completely wrong. My entire worldview is destroyed by this one view that Jesus, the one we crucified, is in the Shekinah glory. Who is this person? Well, he walked there. He healed the sick. He's not the blasphemer we thought. He is God. God has come to planet Earth. And when we nailed him to the cross, every sacrifice was fulfilled. Every ceremonial sacrifice, every sacrifice from Genesis on to the book of Malachi, every ordinance was fulfilled in Jesus Christ. Everything is fulfilled in him. And he realized, of course, there's no more sacrifice. Of course there's no more sacrifice. Of course there can be no more sacrifice, because the one who was sacrificed, he is standing as a man resurrected in the Shekinah. He says, I see it. So he never moved away from that. He saw it. Of course. Jesus is the fulfillment of everything. And so he became this unlikely guy. And I kind of like it that Paul didn't walk with Jesus, because then we would say, well, he's just one of those who walked with Jesus. No, this gives hope for all of us in another way. Here's a guy who didn't walk with Jesus, but he was chosen by God, and God revealed Jesus to him just like God reveals Jesus to us. That's what we are doing around the world. We are going around the world to reveal Jesus, to make people see who Jesus is, to make people say, oh, we want to open their eyes to see Jesus. And we say, God's not like you think he is. He's just like Jesus. So he saw it. Then he began to write this, and he says, I got this. I who am the least. God showed all his long suffering on me as a murderer. I cannot take credit for it. But God revealed this mystery. Abraham saw a little bit. Moses saw a little bit. The prophet saw a little bit. But he says, if you see me, you see the Father. Jesus said, and Paul says, I've come to reveal this to you.
Thank you, Jesus.
And so he even taught the other apostles. He taught them how to read the Bible. Because it says he went up to Jerusalem after so many years, and he told them everything that God had shown him. And you know what it says? The other apostles did not add one word. They didn't say, excuse us, Paul, I think you missed a couple of things here. We need to straighten you out because we have a... They said, wow, that's wonderful. So that's why I say, how do you read the answer sheet? Instead of saying, well, this is what Elijah did. This is what Elisha did. No, look at, how does this make sense for us today? Us who have Jesus and everything in him.
I talked to several audience participants after the show, and many commented on how for years they read the Bible but never really understood how until today. That this teaching really opened their eyes on what the right way to read the Bible was. We want this teaching to be a blessing to you for years to come. And that's why we've made it available to you on a CD series. All the information is on the screen right now. As well, you've seen it throughout the program. Call today and place an order for your copy. You can also order the CD series online. We're about to go to our question and answer session. Whenever you open up the audience for questions, you always get a vast variety. Right after the question and answer session, we will immediately go into a special opportunity, and then I will be back for a closing word.
Should all believers speak in tongues? Is that hard enough?
What has this got to do with my teaching today? Okay.
There's a huge variety here.
No. Should all believers speak in tongues? Well, I certainly believe the word should, it's so demanding. I say to people, do whatever you want, because that's a safe thing to say to people, because frankly, they're going to do that anyhow. They're going to do whatever they want anyhow. But I say for me, if speaking in tongues is available to all, I am going to speak in tongues. Now, if you want to say, I don't want that, well, that's your problem, really. I don't feel any great compulsion. I have to convince you or hit Bible verses in your head and says, Paul says, I speak in tongues more than you all, and who do you? I don't feel I need to do that. Do whatever you want. But I'm telling you, speaking in tongues is a wonderful blessing. So since you raised that topic, let me say, I speak in tongues. I pretty well can say every day. And it really helps me because many times I don't know how to pray like I should. So even, in our pastor's seminar, our pastors ask me, how do you pray? I'm not a very demonstrative praying person. I don't go around screaming in the room, oh God, do this or that. But I pray quietly in the Spirit. Tina says, oh, you're in the zone. She says to me, you're in the zone. That means I'm kind of, I'm zoned out. And and what I find, it synchronizes my thoughts. Sometimes I'm just praying in the Spirit, maybe a little bit in English, and then I pray words I don't understand with my natural understanding, and suddenly I see something. Maybe I'm supposed to go into a situation that night in a place, in a country, and I said, oh, I think God's going to do such and such tonight. I want to be in the flow with that. So it helps me, and I recommend it to everybody. But hey, I'm not telling you that you must or what you should. You do whatever you want. If you want to go through life with less, go ahead. God still loves you. If you don't want to have everything that God has for you, God still loves you. His arms are open towards you. He's not mad at you. But for me, I want everything, including speaking in tongues. And you know why speaking in tongues is such a big deal? Because it sounds a little crazy. You're saying the things you don't understand. So if people are a little bit proud, I'm not saying that, I'm not referring to anybody specifically, but if people are a little bit proud, they say, I'm not going to sound stupid like that. Nobody understands me. That's what the Bible says, when you speak in an unknown tongue, nobody understands you. So it's kind of a humbling thing because you're not in control. And I think there's something powerful in that as well.
What about those who have never had an opportunity to hear the gospel? What does God say will happen to them at death?
This is a huge question, and a question that I have had to face because I meet a lot of these people. I meet a lot of people like this. They're not statistic to me. They are my taxi driver in India. They are people I meet. The man Nazir, who's lying on the bed laying. Before he said I prayed brusquely for him, I said to him, Nazir, have you ever heard of Jesus? Have you ever heard of Jesus? And he could hardly answer. So I said to people, do you know who Jesus Isa al-Masih is? And you know what they said to me in that situation? I remember it so vividly. One of them said, I don't think he lives in this village, but maybe you should try a few kilometers down the road. He might be living there. In other words, I think he might be running a hospital over here someplace, but I don't know who he is. So what I'm saying, I've had to face this. And I could go into a very lengthy teaching on this. But let me just give you one scripture verse. Shall not the judge of all the earth do right? And I leave all those people. I don't condemn them. I want to open their eyes to see Jesus, but I believe the judge of all the earth will do right. And every person will be individually treated by God. And I believe that with all my heart. That's a comforting word. And, I've met people like this. I meet them all the time. That never heard of Jesus. And it's hard for us. We live in a country where, there's churches everywhere. There's Christian bookstores. We have Christian TV. So it's almost unthinkable for us to imagine that the people who have never heard of Jesus. We say, come on. They say, Peter, you're making this up. Of course, in this day and age, maybe internet. It doesn't matter how much internet and television satellite you have. If the satellite is not in the language of the people on the ground, you can broadcast all you want, but nobody will pick it up. Most of you are not listening to Japanese broadcasts, are you? Unless you're Japanese. And so there are people like that. But shall not the judge of all the earth do right?
A VIP partner takes to heart the words of Jesus. Go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. V stands for visionary. God's vision is that none will perish. And that's the vision of a VIP partner. I stands for important. The gospel is the supreme task that Jesus gave to every believer. And a VIP partner says, Lord, here am I. Send me. Lord, I'm available. P stands for partnership. 2,000 years ago, Paul the missionary wrote, I thank God for your contributions and partnership in advancing the good news from the first day you heard it until now. The gospel has always advanced because of partnership, and it is still the same. World Impact Ministries operates the only 24/7 Christian television channel in the world's largest Muslim city. Many hear and respond to the gospel for the first time. Great gospel campaigns reach millions as people see Jesus Christ alive today, touching, healing, and lifting. Hearts are touched and multitudes say yes to the gospel. Leadership seminars train thousands of pastors. Gospel television reaches around the world. At a time when many curse the barbaric evil and the darkness of Islamic terrorism, we shine the light of Jesus Christ where the darkness is greatest. The VIP family is about relationship with Christ and one another. The VIP family is about the gospel. It's a basic human right. Everyone must hear the gospel at least once. The VIP family is about people. Every person has immense value and is unconditionally loved by God. The VIP family is about making history by sending the message of Christ to those who have never heard. You're needed. Become a VIP partner. Many give $42 a month, $500 a year, or $84 per month, $1,000 a year, while others share $25, $50, or $200 each month. Each VIP partner will receive the striking gold-colored cross and globe pin, plus 6 unique teachings per year from Peter Youngren. Become a Gospel VIP. Call 1-877-974-7223 now. Give monthly through your bank account or your credit card. Whatever the amount, this is urgent. Call 1-877-974-7223 or give online at peteryoungren.org.
I've had the amazing privilege of traveling with Pastor Peter for over 6 years to these gospel campaigns. I've witnessed firsthand the impact of your partnership. I've met people in their homes who've been healed in their bodies, who've accepted Jesus, and they all say, "Please tell Peter Youngren, thank you for coming to my city." Well, on behalf of Peter Youngren and World Impact Ministries, I say thank you for sending Pastor Peter to these cities, to these countries. It's not possible unless there is people like you whose hearts are touched by reaching people with the gospel and love of Jesus and responding to the opportunities we've just shown you. Thank you for taking action today and giving your best gift. Well, that concludes our program today. I trust the next time you read the Bible that it comes alive to you in a way that you've never experienced before. Remember, you are loved.
Thank you. Your partnership makes this ministry possible. To share your prayer request or to help bring the good news of Jesus Christ to thousands who have never heard, call 1-877-974-7223. You can give at www.peteryoungren.org or send your gift to World Impact Ministries at P.O. Box 2108, Vista, California 92085, 2108, or 190 Railside Road, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, M3A 1A3. Together, let's give everyone a chance to hear the gospel.